Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are opening up chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita,
Yes.
and it has this really evocative title, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga.
Which, translates to the yoga of knowledge, action, and renunciation.
And this chapter is it's absolutely crucial for anyone who has ever felt that tension between knowing what the right thing to do is and then actually doing it.
That tension, you are so right. That's the engine of this whole section. I mean, we've spent the last two chapters really wrestling with Arjuna's core dilemma.
Right. If spiritual knowledge, if Sokya is the superior path to equanimity.
Then why is Krishna pushing him towards this, well, what Arjuna calls the savage deed of war?
Exactly. So chapter 2 laid out the wisdom of knowledge. Chapter 3 got into the necessity of action, of karma yoga, and really pointed the finger at desire as the great enemy.
But this chapter 4, this is where Krishna finally synthesizes the two. He establishes this eternal, non-binding nature of action when it's performed without attachment.
So it's like an appendix to chapter 3, but it goes so much deeper.
Precisely. It deepens the whole instruction.
Yeah.
The answer to Arjuna's doubt, why act if knowledge is better, is that selfless action, action for the welfare of others, free from ego and desire. That is knowledge in practice.
So it's not a choice. It's not action or knowledge.
Not at all. It's about merging them so that the action itself just stops binding the soul.
Okay, let's unpack the synthesis starting right where Krishna sets the stage. Because he doesn't begin with a philosophical argument, does he?
No, he begins by asserting the ancient authority, the eternal lineage of this very teaching.
To lay this foundation, Krishna brings up these huge figures from the distant past. It's like he's establishing the eternal nature of the discipline right away. Let's hear verse 1.
Shivagavan uvaka ima vivasvad yoga praftavan ayam avyawam vanaprava manur ikavagave bravipavutve. The blessed Lord said, I taught this imperishable yoga to Vivasvan, the sun god. He told it to Manu, and Manu proclaimed it to Ikavaku.
Okay, the word that just jumps out right away is avyam yoga, the imperishable yoga. Why is it so crucial that Krishna calls this discipline of action imperishable?
It's such a deep assertion about spiritual reality. Here, Avyayam Yoga is referring directly to the discipline of action, to Karma Yoga.
Okay.
Krishna is basically reminding Arjuna that the Lord is eternal, and the soul, Arjuna himself, a fragment of the Lord, is also eternal.
So it follows that the path connecting them has to be eternal too.
It has to be. The disciplines, action, knowledge, devotion, they're all eternal. So that word avyayam, it assures the striver that this truth, this path, it exists perpetually, even if it falls out of practice among people.
So the truth doesn't vanish, just our recognition of it can fade.
Exactly. And if the soul's natural, inherent affinity is eternally for God, then Karma Yoga is the mechanism. It's how you peel away your assumed affinity for the perishable world.
Our jobs, our houses, our relationships.
All of it. And you realize that eternal, imperishable union that was always there.
And look at the lineage he cites. Vivasvan, the sun god. Manu, progenitor of mankind. Ikavaku, founder of the solar dynasty. These are not ascetics in a cave.
Not at all. They're cosmic figures, powerful kings. They were householders, deeply engaged in managing the world, and they were part of the warrior class.
Ah, so Krishna is using historical precedent to speak directly to Arjuna's situation.
He's saying, you, Arjuna, you are a householder and a warrior. You don't need to abandon your duty. Look at these great ones. They attained liberation while governing kingdoms.
That is the ultimate validation for someone who has to live and act in the world.
It is. And, think about that sun god analogy with Vivasvan. The sun performs its action constantly. It gives light, heat, energy, but it remains completely unengrossed.
It's not attached to the outcome.
It doesn't desire the fruit of its actions. It doesn't have a sense of mind over the world it illuminates. The striver has to emulate that cosmic detachment. Perform your actions for the public good without any thought of personal gain.
That makes perfect sense. The sun's action is totally selfless, it's continuous, and it's essential for the whole system. But if this karma yoga is an eternal discipline, how could something so vital just fall out of use?
And that is the logical next question, which Krishna addresses immediately in the second verse. Eva parampara praptam ima rajarayu vitu sakaliniya mahata yogonata paratapatu. This, handed down thus in regular succession, the royal sages knew. But through long lapse of time, this yoga was lost to the world. O oppressor of the foe, Arjuna.
The knowledge was known by the Raja Ayo, the royal sages, these philosopher kings.
Right. They managed vast states selflessly. There's that beautiful line from the poet Kalidasa about kings levying tax like the sun drawing water.
Only to return it 1,000-fold as rain.
Exactly. Their whole function was disinterested public welfare. They were the perfect practitioners of karma yoga.
Yeah.
But then it was lost in that.
We have to be careful with that word lost, don't we? It doesn't mean it was annihilated.
No, because as the Lord says later, the real never ceases to be. It can't be destroyed. So this was a practical disappearance.
It passed out of sight because of human error.
That's it. The source gives two reasons. First, a lack of scholarly teachers who could really impart the wisdom correctly. And second, maybe more fundamentally, a failure of the students of people to live it.
It's on us.
It is. The human body is given specifically to practice selfless service. The loss of the yoga is caused by our complete absorption in hankering after fleeting pleasures, prosperity, honor.
That makes it incredibly relevant for today. I mean, when we're caught up in the rat race, acquiring, consuming, seeking validation, that's the internal state that makes karma yoga lost.
You become entangled.
Yeah.
The discipline fades away because we prioritize the perishable.
Yeah.
Our spiritual vision gets clouded by our own parigraha, this relentless accumulation of things and attachment to outcomes.
Which leads to a forgetting of our true duty, and that lapse sets the stage for Krishna to step in.
It does. And that brings us to verse 3, where Krishna reclaims his role as the eternal teacher and tells Arjuna why he is the one to receive this renewed wisdom. Sa evaya mayate yoga prokta puratansi masakateti rahasya hidad uttamam 3. This same ancient yoga has been today declared to thee by me, for thou art my devotee and my friend, and this is the supreme secret.
He calls it the supreme secret, and the reason he's revealing it is twofold. Arjuna is his friend, his Saka, but more importantly, he's his devotee, Bhaktosi.
And that switch, that transition from friend to disciple, is absolutely pivotal. Krishna only reveals the supreme secret to a disciple who is fully surrendered.
Which Arjuna did back in chapter 2.
He did. He admitted his mind was clouded, and he took refuge in Krishna. And, crucially, he showed his absolute devotion when he chose the unarmed Krishna as his guide over the entire fully equipped Narayan army.
That was the ultimate statement of spiritual priority. So what is this supreme secret of karma yoga?
The secret is this simple, but completely transformative truth. Actions done with a selfish motive, they lead to bondage. Period. But when those very same actions are performed for the welfare of others, without selfishness, they lead directly to liberation.
And this can be practiced in any circumstance.
Any circumstance. Rich, poor, healthy, sick, in peacetime or in war. It's the universal key for realizing God.
So that immediately reframes Arjuna's entire situation. He's not being asked to commit a savage deed. He's being asked to perform his beauty as a vehicle for selfless service. Now, Krishna's claim that he taught this to the sun god thousands of years ago, that sparks a very logical, almost chronological question from Arjuna.
Arjuna uvaka para afafato janma para janma vivasalpavatam kathamital vijanayatmamada prakavaniti, for Arjuna said. Later was thy birth, and earlier was the birth of Vivasvan, the sun god. How then am I to understand that thou didst declare to him in the beginning?
And this isn't Arjuna being argumentative, is it? It's genuine curiosity. He's basically saying, help me understand this.
Exactly. He's forcing Krishna to reveal the deeper metaphysical truth of his own divine descent, of the Avatara. Arjuna sees Krishna as Vasudeva's son, born a few decades ago. Vivasvan was there at the dawn of creation. The math doesn't add up.
And this question is so important because it forces Krishna to talk about time, eternity, and the huge difference between the Lord's manifestations and the soul's mortal birth.
Yu Bhagavan uvaka bahuni me vyatatani janmani tavakarjunatani ahaf veda sarvaitnat puvata parantapa 5. The blessed Lord said, many births of mine have passed, as well as of thine, O Arjuna. I know them all, but thou knowest not, O scorcher of foes.
That is just a profound statement because he immediately puts himself and Arjuna on the same plane. Both are beginningless, eternal, both have passed through countless manifestations.
But the difference in the nature of their existence is immense.
All about knowledge.
It's all about knowledge. Krishna is a Yukta Yogi. He knows the past, present, and future of all beings. It's just natural to him. His knowledge is boundless, constant. He's had manifestations, but they aren't births in the human sense.
Whereas Arjuna, the soul, he's passed through many real births, but he can't remember them. He has amnesia. Why?
That amnesia, that ignorance is caused by entanglement. It's caused by his attachment to perishable things, to people, to that relentless accumulation of stuff, the parigraha.
So the attachment creates mental noise.
It creates agitation and ignorance, blinding him to his past and, as we see, even to his present duty. Think of it like a computer with too many programs running. The constant effort of managing all these material attachments, it just consumes all the available memory. There's no room left for realizing the eternal self.
While the Lord is never running programs for personal gain, so his knowledge is always clear.
Always clear.
Okay, so if Krishna's manifestation isn't a birth tied to karma, how does it physically happen? What's the mechanism?
He reveals that mechanism in the very next verse, which is really the definition of an avatara. Ajopi, sanavyatma bhuttanam, vishwaropi sampraktya swamatitaya, sabahami atmamayaya. Though I am unborn, of imperishable nature, the Lord of all beings, yet governing my nature, bhakti, I manifest myself through my yogamaya, divine potency.
Let's break down those 6 attributes of his manifestation. It's 1, unborn; 2, imperishable nature; 3, Lord of all beings;
4, governing his nature; 5, manifesting himself; and 6, through his divine potency, his yogamaya.
This is what fundamentally separates a divine manifestation from a mortal birth.
Completely. A normal person is forced into birth, subordinate to nature, based on their past actions. We're subject to change, to suffering, to death. God, on the other hand, manifests of his own accord. He isn't born, he doesn't change, and he remains the Lord of all beings, even while he seems to be playing a human role.
The key seems to be that difference in control over prati, over nature. We are ruled by it, but he governs it.
He governs his own nature. And the source is specific here. His pure nature is this transcendental power truth, consciousness, bliss. It's a spiritual, internal energy, not the material nature made of the 3 gontas that binds us.
Okay.
He manifests by keeping this supreme spiritual nature under his control, and he uses his yogamaya, his divine potency, to stage the drama of human life.
So Yogamaya is like the stage management for his divine play. He seems human, he seems to undergo hardship, but he's fundamentally untouched.
That's it. His body isn't like ours, made of flesh and blood. His form is eternal, spiritual, free from vice. The stories often say that when he first appears to his mother, like Kausalya or Devaki, he reveals his true 4-armed divine form.
And then he stages the drama of being a helpless child.
Exactly. Using Yogamaya to conceal his true identity from everyone except his most intimate devotees. It's this power that lets him say, lift Govardhana mountain, but still participate perfectly in the drama of human life. The whole thing is his divine, voluntary, perfect display.
But if the Lord is so perfect and transcendent, why stage this elaborate drama at all? What's the ultimate purpose?
That ultimate purpose is beautifully laid out in the next 2 verses. They give us the criteria for when and why he manifests. Yad doyadais dharmasaglanir pabati farata abhyukanam adharmasya de jami aham 7. Whenever there is a decline of righteousness and rise of unrighteousness, O Arjuna, then I manifest myself.
So the condition is a decline of righteousness, dharmaglani, and a rise of unrighteousness, adharma. Now, we often think of this as just, a rise in crime or a drop in morals.
Yeah, and those are symptoms for sure. But the root cause is much deeper, philosophically. The real decline happens when moral values, which can be situational, socially constructed, start to win out over true righteousness, which is eternal and based on selfless duty.
And what's the cause of that?
The deepest cause is our renewed attraction to the perishable, the desire to squeeze pleasure out of mundane objects. This selfish attachment leads to sin, strife, and then, yes, all the unrighteous behavior we see. The Lord manifests when this decline hits a critical point.
And his manifestation isn't just a reaction, it's a constructive act with a very specific 3-part aim, which he details in verse 8. For the
protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of righteousness, I am born from age to age.
Let's delve into that first aim, the protection of the good, the satinam. How does God protect the good? Is it about giving them safety and comfort?
Almost never. And this is where the philosophy really challenges our normal ideas of protection. The good people are those who are inclined toward others' welfare, who propagate righteousness, and who depend totally on God.
Okay.
So when the Lord protects them, he's protecting their good feelings, their devotion. Those are eternal. He's not necessarily protecting their transient bodies or their possessions.
In fact, the source suggests that devotion often thrives in tough situations.
It does. Think about the great devotees in history. They often faced immense hardship. And you have to ask why. Because those unfavorable circumstances force the devotee to renounce attachment, which is the very root of our spiritual downfall.
So sometimes the Lord protects the good by allowing hardship.
Or even creating it to lead them to a higher spiritual state. True protection is spiritual liberation, not a comfortable life.
That completely changed the meaning of divine intervention. Okay, what about the second aim? The destruction of the wicked, the dutam.
The wicked are those who are absorbed in vice, who exploit others, who actively condemn spiritual principles. But the Lord is the disinterested friend of all beings, so he destroys them not out of personal anger or opposition to them as beings.
Because they're also eternal souls.
Right. He's opposed to their wicked actions, which injure the world and ultimately injure themselves.
So the destruction is actually an act of benevolence, a purification.
Yes. The commentary even says it's an act of purification, often resulting in the wicked being sent to his own abode. It's a necessary cleansing of the system.
And finally, the establishment of righteousness. Dharma, Sakta, Panarthaya, what does that look like?
It's established by propagating the selfless performance of actions. Since unrighteousness comes from acting with selfish motives, the Lord manifests specifically to root out desire, the cause of all of it, and to teach, by his own example, the principle of acting without expecting a reward.
So having unveiled the secret of his eternal manifestation and its purpose, Krishna now connects this divine knowledge directly to the liberation of the person seeking it. What is the reward for truly understanding these truths?
Janma karma kame divyam eva yovetti tattvadayambunar jammanaitimam eti sorjuna. He who thus knows in their true nature my divine birth and action, having abandoned the body, is not born again. He comes to me, O Arjuna.
That's the ultimate promise, liberation from the cycle of birth and death. But why? Why is simply knowing about the Lord's birth and action so powerful that it grants liberation?
Because the Lord's manifestations are defined by absolute non-doership and total detachment. When a striver truly knows that Krishna performs all these actions, yet remains a non-doer, that striver realizes that their own true self is also the eternal non-doer. Human life is given to us to perform actions free from desire and the sense of mind. And when actions are purged of these impurities, they become divine, just like the Lord's.
So the knowledge itself is purifying because it disconnects us from the illusion that we're the actors and the owners of the results.
Exactly. By studying the Lord's pastimes, our hearts are purified, ignorance is removed, and our fundamental connection to the world is renounced. When you internalize that the universe's greatest actions are done without ego, your own small actions lose their binding power.
And what are the qualities of those who actually achieve this liberated state?
Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mam upashito bhavos yanna tapase patapavamagata navataten. Freed from attachment, fear, and anger, absorbed in me, taking refuge in me, purified by the penance of knowledge, many have attained to my being.
So the first things to go are attachment, raga, fear, bhaya, and anger, krodha. And we treat these as separate emotional problems, but they all come from the same root, don't they?
They do, all of them. Attachment, fear, anger, greed, desire, that sense of mind. They're all products of our assumed affinity for perishable objects.
If you're attached to something, you fear losing it.
And you get angry when it's threatened. So if you renounce that fundamental affinity for the perishable world, the entire chain of vices just crumbles.
And the method of purification is janatapasa, the penance of knowledge.
That knowledge is knowing the reality of the Lord's divine birth and action. That truth acts like a fire, an austerity, that burns away ignorance. When the assumed affinity for the world is gone, the soul's natural eternal attraction for God shines through.
And unlike attraction for, say, a sweet dish,
which diminishes over time, right?
Yeah.
The attraction for God is eternally enhanced. Continuous devotion transforms into this unbroken, ever-new love.
And that sets up the next verse perfectly. The law of divine relationship. Reciprocity.
Ye yato masant prapadyante tasataiva bhajamyaham mamavat manovartante manuharta sarvashoyolevan. As men approach me, so do I accept them. O Partha, all men follow my path in all respects.
The law of reciprocation is absolute. We define the relationship. If we approach the Lord as a son, a friend, a servant,
he reciprocates that exact sentiment, which guarantees the devotee can attain him easily and quickly through that particular feeling. It's the ultimate divine personalization.
But the scope of it is really remarkable, even if someone approaches him with hatred.
Even then, the Lord reciprocates by working for their ultimate long-term salvation. Take Ravana. Rama sent a messenger to him not just for war, but ultimately for Ravana's own welfare, giving him a chance to correct his path and achieve purification, even if it had to be through destruction.
That's an extraordinary benevolence. It also suggests that even a negative focus on God is still a powerful connection.
It is. But you also mentioned this stride difference.
Yes, he says he accepts us as we approach him, but the effort seems weighted in our favor.
Oh, it is. While the sentiment is reciprocated, his action is disproportionate. If a devotee takes one stride toward God, out of his infinite compassion, God takes hundreds to meet them.
That should give this striver a lot of confidence.
Immense confidence. The moment you make the smallest genuine effort, the momentum of divine grace takes over.
Okay, but what about that second line? All men follow my path in all respects.
Yeah.
If people are worshiping other gods or chasing worldly goals, how are they all following Krishna's path?
Because he is the supreme being. He is the ultimate source of all existence. Even those worshiping lesser gods for temporary results or those who deny God are still moving within the structure of his reality. The actions they perform and the fruits they get are all governed by his underlying cosmic law.
So the practical instruction for the striver is to follow his footsteps consciously.
Consciously, by rendering selfless service, becoming free from mind, and developing singular devotion. That's the conscious path.
But if the Supreme Lord is so generous, so immediate, offering eternal liberation, why do people look elsewhere? Why chase after these temporary rewards?
Kalkanta karman sitya janta yadafato, paprahi manulokis sitir pavati karmaja 12. Those who desire the fruition of their actions worship the gods, because success is quickly attained by men through action.
So the motivation is a desire for quick success, for siddhi, and for perishable results. Riches, power, honor.
And because the human world is bound by action and reaction, those perishable results, they're attained quickly through rituals aimed at lesser deities.
This is where that analogy of the father versus the shopkeeper is so sharp.
It is. The Lord is like a benevolent father. A father only gives gifts that are good for the child's long-term welfare, even if the child is crying for something harmful. The Lord only bestows things for the devotee's ultimate spiritual good.
And the other gods are like shopkeepers.
They're like shopkeepers. They'll sell you whatever you want as long as you pay the price of the ritual. If a little boy comes and asks for a knife or a matchbox, something harmful, the shopkeeper will often sell it, no questions asked.
They don't consider the child's welfare.
No. And rituals to lesser deities yield specific, tangible results. But those results often reinforce material attachment, which is harmful in the long run.
So the worship of other gods really stems from ignorance of the Lord's glory and a deep attachment to the material world.
Precisely. They are, as the source says, dull-witted. They mistakenly believe that getting a new car or a promotion is the real success of human life, instead of seeking God realization, which is the eternal highest goal.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Krishna now describes how he's the source of the cosmic and social order, but he remains totally detached from it, which seems like a contradiction. How can the creator also be the non-doer?
Katarvacha mayaskotar mavufagash tasya kataram bimai vidya kartaram avyam 13. The fourfold caste order was created by me, according to the modes of nature and action. Though I am the creator, know me, the immortal Lord, to be a non-doer.
First, we have to be really clear about the Vartan system, the Katarvacha. This is based entirely on Gota inherent quality and karma corresponding action. It is not based on birth.
That is fundamental. This classification of roles, Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, is determined by one's nature and duty.
But back to the paradox. He is the creator, yet he is the akartaram, the non-doer. How can creation happen without him acting?
He's both the material cause, like the clay, and the efficient cause, like the potter. But unlike a human potter, he remains uniform and totally unconnected to the result.
How so?
When a potter makes a pot, he expends energy and the clay is consumed. When God creates, his energy isn't spent, and the material isn't consumed in a binding way. He's like the space in which all creation happens. He's essential, ever-present, but eternally untouched and unchanging.
So he's the substratum, not the bound actor. And the lesson for us is that since the soul is a fragment of God, we are also inherently non-doers.
Exactly, we just have to realize it. And the Lord reinforces this by explaining the two specific traits that make his actions non-binding. Nema karmachi limpanti name karma feles pe iti mayo vijanati karma virna sabadya 14. Actions do not taint me, since I have no craving for the fruit of actions. He who knows me thus, in reality, is not bound by actions.
And there they are, the two traits of divine purity. Non-doership, from the last verse, and absolutely no craving for the fruit of the action.
And for the striver, this is the blueprint for liberation. Emulate the Lord. Perform your actions without that sense of I am doing this or I must get this result. The actions themselves only become divine when they're purged of the impurities of desire, attachment, and the sense of mind.
Having explained his own nature and non-binding action, Krishna now issues a direct command for Arjuna to follow this path. referencing those ancient sages one more time.
Evajetvakata karma purvair, apimumukopi kuru karmaiva tasmat pai purva purvatarkatam 15. Having known this, the ancient seekers of liberation also performed action. Therefore, do thou also perform action, as the ancients did in former times.
This feels like the final nail in the coffin for Arjuna's initial confusion. Seeking liberation, being a mukho, does not mean fleeing from action.
Not at all. It means performing your necessary duty, karmaiva, in a disinterested way, just like Janaka and Manu did.
It connects the philosophy right back to the application.
It does. The Lord is stressing the dual purpose of karma yoga. The action, the karma, is for the world's welfare. The union, the yoga, is for your own liberation. By acting selflessly for others, the affinity that binds you to the world is renounced, and God is automatically attained.
Now we are entering one of the most philosophically dense and, frankly, crucial sections of the entire Gita. Krishna promises to clear up the great confusion about what truly is action and what is inaction.
Kiskan kima karmeti kavayu pitamoita tate karma pravakyami yai jatva se shuvat 16. What is action? What is inaction? As to this, even the wise are confused. Therefore, I will explain to thee what action is, by knowing which thou shalt be liberated from its evil effect, worldly bondage.
This confusion is the absolute root of Arjuna's whole problem. He thought non-action, fleeing the battlefield, would save him from sin.
And Krishna is about to show him the true reality. It's not the action or non-action that binds you, it's the desire and attachment. And the key is in verse 18. Karmaya karmaya pashida karmaya karmaya sambudhimana manuyo sayukta kasna karma kariti. He who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is wise among men. He's yogi and he has performed all his duties.
Okay, let's go deep on this paradox. How do we break down seeing inaction, karmani, akarma for someone listening today?
This is the practical synthesis. Karmini karma means you perform your prescribed duties, running a business, raising a family, fighting a war, but you do it without any selfish motive, without desire for the fruit, without a sense of mine.
And because those binding elements are gone.
The action itself loses its binding potential. It becomes, in the spiritual ledger, non-binding. It becomes inaction.
I think of a surgeon performing a life-saving operation. They're intensely active, but their motivation is purely professional and altruistic. The action is huge, but the ego attachment is minimal.
That's a perfect analogy for detached duty. Now, the reverse. Seeing action in inaction, akarma and akara-karma. This is often the harder one for people to get.
Right. If I stop physically doing things, how is that a binding action?
It's when a person physically stops. Maybe they go on a retreat or sit for meditation, but internally, they're still full of selfish motives. Egoism, a desire for the seedy, the result of non-performance.
So they're sitting there thinking, look how spiritual I am. I'm going to get enlightened faster than everyone else.
Exactly. And that thought, that desire, that's a subtle action. It's a mental projection, a sakalpa. So even though they're sitting still, they are performing binding action.
So an ego-driven meditator is performing action, while a disinterested soldier on the battlefield might be performing spiritual inaction.
That is precisely it. The action is rooted in motive. The true yogi is detached, whether they're physically acting or not, because they know the self is eternal and the world is transitory. That person is truly wise.
And the ultimate sage, then, is the one who eliminates the very seeds of action desire and mental projection.
Yasha sarve samarampa kamasaka upavarjita yanani daga kramaka tamahupanste bhuta, 1995. He whose undertakings are all free from desire and mental projection, whose actions are burnt up by the fire of knowledge, him the wise call a sage.
Free from kama, desire, and sakalpa, mental projection. These are the subtle internal architects of every external act.
And without them, the action can't take root and bear the fruit of bondage. The yanagni, the fire of wisdom, it reduces these seeds to ash. That wisdom is the practical knowledge that actions belong to the body and the world, not to the self.
This level of detachment seems to demand a life of real minimalism and service. And the Lord gives us a snapshot of that ideal karma yogi.
Nirashur yatachitatvat yakta sarva perigran kevala kama kurvanapnoti kilbyan 21 sini. Having no desires, with his mind and body fully subdued, giving up all sorts of possessions, even performing action necessary only for the maintenance of the body, a karma yogi incurs no sin.
Tyakta sarva paragratha, the renunciation of all worldly possessions. Now that's the only verse in the Gita that demands total renunciation. How does a householder apply that?
The interpretation is key. For a true renunciate, yes, it means physical abandonment. But for a householder, it means owning things, but using them exclusively for the world's service, not for personal pleasure. Your car, your home, your money, they're all tools for service, not sources of egoistic enjoyment. That's internal renunciation.
And the action itself is limited to what's necessary for the bare maintenance of the body.
And because this yogi is free from desire and hope, he avoids even incidental sin. And this detachment extends to complete equanimity no matter the outcome. Yatira talamasantutu anvatuto vimatsarasamasitavasitao katafemi nanibaja 22. Content with what comes to him without desire for fruit, free from the pairs of opposites, and even-minded in success and failure, ever though acting, he's not bound.
Contentment, transcendence of opposites, and freedom from envy. Vimatsara. That last one, freedom from envy, that's a powerful sign of realization.
It is, because the realized soul identifies their own self with the self in all beings. If your self is everywhere, who is there to envy?
They're like a truly great actor. They play their role in the world king, pauper, warrior, but they are completely unattached to the success or failure of that character because they know who they really are.
That's a very helpful analogy. And finally, the ultimate culmination of this selfless action ties back to the idea of sacrifice. Gata sogasya muktasya janavastita sechesa yanya garata karma samagara pravilya 23:23. All the actions of a man who is devoid of attachment, who is liberated, whose mind is established in knowledge, who works for the sake of sacrifice, are dissolved.
Actions are dissolved or reduced to nothing as long as they're performed as a yajna.
And yajna here simply means action performed solely for the welfare of others, with no selfish motive. This is how the soul closes the account of karmic debt. You pay what you owe through selfless action without expecting repayment. And when actions are purified like this, they no longer bind the soul. They are utterly dissolved.
Now, the verses right before this next section detail various types of sacrifice material offerings, sense control, and so on, all born of action. But Krishna now pivots to declare which sacrifice is supreme.
Shri Andravya Maya Janya Janyanya Parantapa Sarva Karmahila Partanyana Parasapapet 33. Knowledge as a sacrifice is superior to any material sacrifice, O harasser of the foes, Arjuna. All actions in their entirety, O Arjuna, culminate in knowledge.
So that establishes the hierarchy. Material sacrifices, dravyamaya, involve physical things and rituals. But knowledge sacrifice, jnanayanyan, is superior because it cuts right to the root of the problem, which is ignorance.
Exactly. All actions, even past ones, they culminate in knowledge. And what that means is when true knowledge, which is rooted in discrimination, in viveka, is attained, the striver's affinity for the world and all its transient activities is just completely renounced.
So the whole spiritual journey is really about renouncing our affinity for the unreal.
Once that's done, knowledge flowers. And that's the ultimate end.
So if knowledge is the destination, how do we acquire it? We can't just think our way to liberation.
No. And Krishna provides the three essential, practical methods for approaching a true spiritual teacher. Tadvidi prachapatna pariprashinena sevayupadikyanti te jana janinas tatvadarshina 34:4. Learn that by prostration, humble reverence, by question, and by service. The wise who have realized the truth will instruct thee in that knowledge. The first step is prachapatna prostration, humble reverence. Why is humility the absolute prerequisite? Because arrogance is the biggest wall to learning. Prostration demands surrender. You have to acknowledge that your own intellect has led you to a state of doubt and that you need guidance from a tattvadashina seer of truth. Without that humility, wisdom just bounces off the ego.
The second is savaya service.
Right. Service with your body and your possessions. And this is important because it translates philosophical principles into practice. It's an act of love, proving you prioritize the wisdom over your own comfort. And the final one, Kariprashina, inquisitive questioning. This can't just be any kind of questioning, can it? No, absolutely not. It has to be sincere, simple, profound questioning about the core of reality. Who am I? What is the cause of my bondage? How can I realize God? It has to come from a genuine yearning for truth, not an attempt to test the teacher or show off.
And having laid out the method, Krishna now describes the invincible power of this knowledge.
Api said asi papevya, sarvevya papekapaketama saravyana plavenaiva, Virginia Santrayatsi 36. Even if thou art the most sinful of all sinners, thou shalt undoubtedly cross all sins by the boat of knowledge, wisdom alone.
He uses the superlative, the most sinful of all sinners, just to drive home the point that the power of self-knowledge is greater than any accumulated sin.
The analogy of the boat of knowledge, the Janaplava, is key here. This boat is so strong it can't be broken or sunk. Sins are acts performed under the delusion of affinity for the body. The moment the light of knowledge is lit, they vanish.
Because the root of sin is cut.
The root is cut, and the tree of sin collapses instantly. This is clarified even more with the image of fire. Yataide si samidunir, basmasad kurute juna yananya sarva karmach, basmasad kurute tata 37. As the blazing fire reduces fuel to ashes, O Runa, even so does the fire of knowledge reduce all actions to ashes.
So this answers that lingering question.
Yeah.
What happens to the deeds? They are burnt to ash. We talked about the 3 types of action, Sanichita, Prarabdha, and Kriyamash. How does the Yanani handle each one?
This is so crucial for understanding liberation. First, Sanichita. That's the accumulated karma, the vast, unseen storehouse from past lives. It's like a bank of unsprouted seeds.
Okay.
Sanichita is destroyed completely and instantly because it depends entirely on ignorance. Once ignorance is gone, the whole seed bank is incinerated.
So the root of the problem, solved. What about Kriyamat, the actions we're doing right now?
Once knowledge is gained, the person loses the sense of doership and the craving for results. So even though they might be intensely active, like Arjuna on the battlefield, those actions become inaction. They become non-binding, reduced to ashes because the internal motive is gone.
And finally, Prarabdha, fate. The actions that have already started to bear fruit in this lifetime.
Prarabdha is subtle. It still produces circumstances. The body will still get hungry, get sick, face success and failure. But the man of knowledge is entirely unaffected by them. He's perfectly equanimous. The circumstances happen to the body, but he knows he's the eternal, detached self.
So the circumstances still exist, but their binding power is gone.
Nullified.
Okay, so what qualities are necessary to actually get this knowledge?
Radhavallabhade jana tatparasya tendriya jana bharava shantimachreti gachati 3090. He who has faith, who is devoted to it, i.e. knowledge, and who has subdued his senses, gains knowledge, wisdom, and having gained knowledge, he attains at once the supreme peace.
3 prerequisites: Shraddha faith, Tatpara devotion, and Sayatendriya subdued senses. Let's start with faith. What kind of faith?
It's a discriminative faith, the firm belief that the world is unreal, transitory, and that God alone is eternal. Without that conviction, spiritual practice is weak, and Tatpara devotion or exclusive concentration is what makes that faith mature into realization.
And you can't have concentration if your senses are constantly being pulled outward.
Which is why you need Satendriya, subdued senses. When you have these 3, faith, concentration, and control, the result is instantaneous peace.
And that peace, Parisanthim, is attained so quickly because it's our natural state.
It's axiomatic. We only lose it because we seek it in the perishable, sorrowful world. Gaining knowledge means renouncing our affinity for that world, which immediately reveals the supreme peace that was always there.
And conversely, the Lord warns of the danger for those who lack these qualities.
The man who is devoid of discriminative insight, who has no faith, who is of a doubting nature, perishes. For the doubting soul, there is neither this world nor the world beyond, nor any happiness.
The 3 deadly deficiencies: ignorance, ajya, lack of faith, ashadadana, and a doubting nature, saishatma.
A person with a skeptical nature, who doubts the scriptures, the teacher, the process, they can never make a firm resolve for salvation. Doubt is a spiritual poison. The person who doubts everything can never commit fully to anything, so they find no happiness here, let alone in the next world.
This entire discourse has been Krishna's comprehensive answer to Arjuna's confusion, and he concludes the chapter with a final, powerful command.
43. Therefore, having cut as under this doubt, in thy heart that is born of ignorance, resort to yoga and stand up for the fight. O Bharata.
That is the definitive instruction. Use the Janasena, the sword of knowledge, to cut the doubt born of ignorance, and then, fixed in yoga, in equanimity, stand up Utya and do your duty.
He makes it undeniable. The physical act of fighting is secondary. What's primary is the state of mind. Arjuna has to perform his duty while established in detachment, liberated from the bondage that doubt creates. The knowledge comes first, and that makes the action pure.
So this chapter 4, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, it provides the whole philosophical architecture that validates action. It reveals that karma yoga, selfless service, isn't separate from knowledge.
It leads directly to it. The key takeaway is the mechanism of liberation.
Yeah.
Actions don't bind you. Only the desire for the fruit of the action binds you. By knowing the secret of Krishna's eternal, non-binding action, we get the template to emulate that non-doership, dissolving our own actions in the fire of knowledge.
And as we conclude this deep dive, we want to leave you with 3 contemplative questions from this chapter to guide your practice this week.
First, think about those kings of the solar dynasty. They governed entire worlds with detachment. If the Supreme Being acts constantly for the welfare of the cosmos without desire, what selfish motive justifies our own profound attachment to the fruit of our small, finite actions?
Second, consider that paradox from verse 18. Inaction, inaction. Where in your life are you busy, but acting with so much personal ego that the action is binding you? And conversely, where are you pursuing inaction avoidance, procrastination, but doing so with the desire for ease or fame, which binds you just as surely?
And finally, Krishna identified the 3 prerequisites for knowledge: faith, devotion, and sense control. Which of those 3 pillars feels the weakest in your own life? Identify the one that requires the most immediate and focused attention to begin crossing that ocean of sin this very moment.
Carry these insights with you. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.